Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Mary Murray Shelton, the community spiritual leader here, and I want you to know that whoever you are and wherever you may be on your pathway of faith, on your journey of life, you're welcome here, and I'm glad you're here this morning. You may be from any place, it could be any time of day or season because we're broadcasting to Facebook Live. So if you've come across us apparently by accident, hang out with us for a little while and see what you think. This is the month of June, so we're going into a whole new theme for this month called The Soul's Call. The Soul's Call. Even if we don't think we know what we're here for, we go through a number of times in our lives when we become aware of something that pulls, something that draws us almost irresistibly toward it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that this morning in the context of when we're pushed by pain. When we're pushed by pain. So we're going to talk about pain and the soul's call and how those are related to each other. But it's actually going to be a lot of fun, although you might not think so right now. We have joining us this morning just a wonderful guest artist. His name is Greg Tamblyn. I'm going to tell you about him in just a minute. And Marilyn Letzos, who teaches our Quick Start workshop, is our morning prayer practitioner. So Greg was based for many years in Nashville, and he learned that there was no shortage of why me songs. So he began to explore ways of lightening up life's challenges with songs like Self-Employment Made Harder by a Difficult Boss and Analog Brain in a Digital World. His humorous look at relationships' common side effects include won the humor category top awards in the Just Plain Folks Music Awards out of over 140,000 entries. He delivered one of the primary keynotes at the Humor Project International Conference, which in past years featured luminaries like Goldie Hawn, Steve Allen, Bob Newhart, and lots of other famous funny people. He has been, Greg this is now, not Steve Allen, an award-winning speaker, humorist, singer-songwriter for more than 25 years. He combines audience rapport with his wonderfully irreverent sense of humor, which I love. He captivates audiences with a wealth of powerful material about relationships, lifestyle, music, and laughter. So please enjoy him with me right now. I'm delighted to welcome to Golden Gate, Greg Tamblyn.
Thank you, Mary, so much. And what a beautiful intro. I hope I can live up to it. Before I do this song, I want to thank you for having me. And I want to just let everybody know I have been hearing about your community, not for years, for decades, at least 2 decades. And I'm honored to finally get to share some time with you all this morning. So as Mary said, we're all about the soul this month, and today it's a little bit about growing through pain. And you know, we all know that life can be painful. We all know that life can be real serious. If we forget, you know, we can turn on the TV news for 2 minutes and we get reminded how serious life is. But let me ask you this. Are you like me? Have you ever had the particular gift or talent of making life even more serious than it already is? Because I'm an expert at this. I can forget everything I've learned in 2 seconds and revert. So I wrote a song about it for me. You can see if this helps you. This is called Writer's Block, or the long-term positive and negative effects of worry. Here we go. I was worried about not writing any songs. No words, no tunes, nothing for way too long. I was worried I'd never write again. Maybe there was no more ink in my pen. And I thought about that, and I began to feel ashamed. I was ashamed that I'd been worried about not writing. I'd been through droughts before and come out fighting. Seemed like my worry was out of control, and I was ashamed about it down to my soul. And then it hit me what I was doing, and I started feeling guilty. I was guilty that I could let myself feel shame over something so insignificant as this writing game. I thought I'd released that stuff long ago, and I felt guilty that I had such a long way to go. And then I realized what I was doing, and I got embarrassed. I was embarrassed that my shame could make me feel guilty. All these negative thought patterns, man, it was silly. If someone could see inside my head, they'd give me a drug and put me to bed. Yeah, I was embarrassed. That made me mad. I was angry that I could be so immature. I was angry at me, down on myself for sure. And as my anger turned into resentment, I thought about what the long-term effects of that meant, and I realized what I was doing to my body, and I began to feel afraid. I was afraid of what I was doing to myself. All these negative emotions affecting my health. If body and mind are so interconnected, my shame, guilt, worry, and fear were making me infected, and I was afraid that I was becoming depressed. And as I began to sink into depression, the effect on my body and mind became an obsession. The outcome of this could not be in doubt, and that gave me something new to worry about. I knew that I might not be around for too long, so I wrote it all down and I had a new song. And when I thought about that, I was fine again. Well, if you can relate to that, I hope the song helps you to reframe your issues with some humor. So thanks for your attention to that. Let's go into a little meditative time for a minute. Maybe you'd just like to relax and sit back and take a nice slow breath. I'm going to play some very pretty music and then offer you this short little verse too. Let all things be healthy. Let all things be peaceful. Be sure to count your blessings at least once a day. Forgive those who have hurt you and those who have offended you. But forgive yourself for that which you have done and for what you have failed to do. That which is done, there is no need to speak of. That which is past, there is no need to blame. Have self-control, self-knowledge, self-respect, and the courage to dare. Be tranquil. The light of intelligence will shine. Strive to make a spot where you stand beautiful, and then the beauty and harmony will follow you in all your ways, in all your days, on this journey we call life.
So continuing in the energy of this beautiful truth spoken by Greg. Join me now as I go deep within myself, to that part that always was and always will be my immortal soul. As I contemplate and just dive into this self, I come to that place. That longing leads me into that essence of God, of the all that is, where I discover that I actually am one with all that is, with that one great life that is God, the good, omnipotent, omnipresent, present everywhere, knowing everything, and the only power there is. And this power, this presence is everywhere, fully available at every point in the universe. It is impossible to be outside of God. And I know that I am part of this power. I am part of the gifts that are always available, of wisdom and joy, beauty, harmony, peace, power, wisdom, wholeness, lavish, unfailing abundance, and of course, most of all, love, unconditional love that never fails. And knowing that this supply, that this incredible, endless gift has already been given and continues to give in infinite proportions, I speak my word for the reception, the receiving of these gifts by every single person who is joining us here today, or anyone who watches this video, or anyone in the entire world, because as I am part of this power, so is every single person. And though we are free to receive or not accept these gifts, they are always available. And so I speak my word this morning for this person, for each one, everyone, to open to the power, to know that, as Greg said, whatever has been done or hasn't been done, they are endlessly and unconditionally available. And as I know that I am in exactly the right place in my path, as is every single person, then there is nothing to block the receiving of that gift that each one is seeking, of that experience of worthiness, of self-love, that enables, that allows these gifts to be felt and expressed and to make themselves known in each and every life. That such grace awaits the acceptance. And so I give thanks for this receptivity. I give thanks for the opening of every heart, knowing that it is receiving this morning exactly what it craves, what is calling itself to, and what it is calling for they are one. The desire and the fulfillment of that desire are all the same piece of consciousness. And so I give thanks for this receptivity to the more that each one has come for today, through the words of our beloved Reverend Mary, through the words of and the inspiration of Greg Tamblyn. And I am so grateful that Spirit, that God, is coming right through each one with these infinite gifts. And so I give thanks. And I now allow that creative part of God to say yes as I let it go and say, so be it. And truly, so it is. Amen.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that was so beautiful. You know, Marilyn has just given us this stunningly beautiful and expansive picture, definition, explanation of God. And I'm sure we're all here because we agree with that or we want to agree with that. And I'm also sure that if we're here, we're probably from somewhere way back where our concept of God was a lot different than what we just heard. And I think that's interesting because whatever our concept of God used to be, it's different now. Well, I don't think God's changed very much in 30 years. So I found that funny, an idea for a song. So this is called A Brief History of God. And excuse me, I'm a science guy. So in the tail end of the song, we bring in some physics. You know, I had trouble with physics in college because when I signed up, I thought it said psychics. Wasn't what I expected. But anyway, when we get to the part about strings, you'll know it's string theory or physics. So this is called A Brief History of God or G string theory. In the beginning there was lots of competition, goddesses and gods of every disposition, from merciful to mean, from laid back to hyper, and little baby gods that flew around in diapers. Animals, pranksters, destroyers, creators, flute players, lute players, nymphs and satyrs. So many gods it was hard to keep them sorted. God had multiple personality disorder. Well, keeping track of all these gods was no fun. So finally, some people said, let's cut it down to one. But the one God was angry, always finding fault. There was banishment and floods and pillars of salt. Well, why? Was God traumatized at an early age by standing too close to the Big Bang? Was it nature or nurture or Satan's little goblins? God had anger, management problems. And God had other issues that messed with serenity, like this long-term question of sexual identity, the feminine divine or the male autonomous. God was so confused. Am I androgynous? Then on top of that, was challenging the most, was trying to figure out what the heck's the Holy Ghost. God needed time off and checked into a clinic. Poor old God was becoming schizophrenic. While in for treatment, God sent some folks to teach us, like Krishna, Buddha, Mohammed, Jesus. On some things they agree, on other things they don't. And if you choose the wrong one, some say your soul is toast. Now everybody's praying by all these different rules. Muslims 5 times a day, Buddhists quite a few, Hindus, Jews, and Christians whenever there's a need, and Unitarians would rather plant a tree. Well, God's come a long way from that early dysfunction, and now science has brought us to this beautiful junction. The key to the theory is that every single thing is made up entirely of vibrating strings. Well, this is what musicians have known all along. The universe is really one big song. And there you have it, friends. That's the story so far. We're all just musical strings in God's big guitar.
Oh, thank you, Greg. I love your lyrics. They're so fun. And wake us up to the fact that spirituality doesn't have to be so deadly serious all the time. Um, as we're looking at talking about pain, it's helpful to have a lightening vision of it, a lightening up kind of vision of it. We all experience pain. There's nobody who escapes the experience of loss that shows up as all different kinds of things in our lives. Usually, our everyday kind of experience of pain is delays and annoyances. They're kind of frustrations, miscommunications, expenses we weren't expecting, things like that. This is that kind of inconvenience. Lady says, when my dad ran out of gas, he called mom to come and pick him up in her car. And they went to a gas station, filled the gas can, and returned to the parking area. And after a few minutes, dad got into her car again. We need to go back to the gas station, he said. 1 gallon wasn't enough, mom asked. It would have been, he said, if I'd put it in the right car. Do you ever have a day like that? And when it happens to somebody else, it can provide a moment of humor, just like this for us this morning. But when it happens to you, it might not seem funny. Yesterday, as I was preparing for this talk, it seemed like things were thwarting me at every turn. I was trying to make a reservation here. I was trying to arrange something else there. All of the web sites were loading so slowly in the browser. Some things I had to turn off and turn back on again. And then the websites didn't function properly. And so I lose all my data and have to re-enter it all again. You know how that is? And I was feeling very frustrated when it occurred to me that that's what this whole talk is about. Now, sometimes when I get a little space from something like that, that reveals itself as good material for a talk, I can bubble up at that thought, but this was happening a little too soon on the heels of all this frustration. So while I acknowledged it, I wasn't happy about it. There are things that come about in our lives that make us want to tear our hair out because they're time consuming, or there's a confusing response, or an unhelpful response, or there's a misunderstanding in the communication, or there's an unexpected expense. And so the thing that I find that I want to do, and I suspect other people do too, is we want to fix other people. We want to fix other websites. We want to fix other organizations. David Sedaris, the humorist, said once, I haven't got the slightest idea how to change people, but I still keep a long list of prospective candidates just in case I should ever figure it out. I think that we secretly can be a lot like David Sedaris. We secretly recognize that other people or other situations or other websites or other organizations are the problem, really not us. That's day-to-day kinds of pain, annoyance, irritation, frustrations. But what about those bigger crises in our lives, those crises of loss that are truly wounding or painful? And I don't think anybody escapes these either. Any person that you admire, any great person in history, has had cataclysmic losses. They may not necessarily have made good choices at the time of those losses, or maybe those losses became the very moment of transformation. So the losses I'm talking about, sometimes it's health, ours or someone dear to us. Sometimes it's money. We lose all of our well-being that way. Sometimes we lose a relationship, or we lose our reputation, deserved or not. We lose our work, our career, or our business. We lose our sense of identity or our home. All of these things are well documented in history that people have lost these, but they're also well documented in our own life experience. And when we lose those, it's as if the tornado that carries Dorothy into another world has happened to us. Like the earth has opened up and swallowed us. It's like something we can't control has taken over our lives. Andy Law said, unless you're prepared to give up something valuable, you will never be able to truly change it all, because you'll be forever in the control of the things you can't give up. Now that makes me stop and think, do I want to be in control of the things I can't give up. And yet, how does that balance out with my willingness to let go of control? Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith says, pain pushes until the vision pulls. And I always used to teach my students that when the universe wants to get our attention about something that needs to be altered or changed or guidance we're being given, initially it's a whisper, it's a tap, a gentle tap on the shoulder. And if we don't notice or we don't respond, the tap gets more insistent and the voice gets louder. Maybe it becomes a shove and a really loud voice. And if we continue to ignore or overlook or delay a response, we shouldn't be surprised when the bricks fall out of the sky. Now, even teaching that doesn't mean that I was always able to act before the bricks fell out of the sky. Don Miguel Ruiz says, attention is the ability we have to discriminate and to focus only on that which we want to perceive. So that could be a double-edged sword, right? If what we want to perceive is only what we are willing to acknowledge and not let go of, then what we're paying attention to could cause us problems, because pain is always designed to get our attention, to cause us to take action, and to allow healing. You know, the body-mind system wants to heal itself, but sometimes it can't without some kind of help or intervention. And when that happens, that it reaches that point, we have to surrender our pride to ask for help. We have to surrender into that helpless feeling we have that we don't really know what to do. We have to be willing to let ourselves know that we don't know. We have to be willing to give up our sense of control, because clearly the control is already gone, but to acknowledge that that's happened. We have to be willing to change. Now, I have seen people, and sometimes I could be one of them, who would rather die than change about some particular thing. So the pain pushes and the pain pushes and the pain pushes until we surrender to the need to take some kind of action to allow that healing to begin to take place. And when the healing begins, it's always in relationship to some change in us, physically, mentally, emotionally. It's always a change that allows the healing to happen. I came across a wonderful picture that really symbolized this for me. It's a picture of a brick wall, and there are neon lights on the brick wall that say in great big letters, "This is the sign you've been looking for." Pain is the sign we've been looking for. It's not necessarily showing up in the form that we wanted it in, but it is the sign we've been looking for. It's the sign that we are being called to change. We're being called into an opportunity for transformation. Think about this. All the people who have written really powerful, transformative, self-help kinds of books or stories are people who had to step into the lion's den in some way. They had to go there, even if they were dragged there or were pushed into it. They had to go there. And in the process of facing that lion, they received whatever the transformative gift was that allowed them to communicate that back to us in a way that we could act upon ourselves and bring healing into our own lives and our own experience. I think about Joe Dispenza, who went through a terrifying physical incapacitation to discover the power of his own focus, his own choice, his own mind and heart and intention, and his ability to discipline that in the way that he wanted to unfold. But if he had never had that excruciating disability, would he have discovered that capacity in himself? Would he be teaching thousands of people? Now, I wonder. I have seen people take advantage of crossing that threshold we call death as a transformative opportunity. And I have seen people make that crossing, resisting it mightily and expanding their own pain. There is something about dwelling in that painful transition place where we are between. We are between what we have been and what we are becoming. And in that transitional place, we don't know how long that will last. And it is made worse by hanging on to the past and refusing to let it go, whether we're blaming ourselves or somebody else, or we bemoaning something that happened, or longing for the feeling of ease that we once had. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, said, "Have no fear of tomorrow. Enjoy today. Refuse to carry the corpse of a mistaken yesterday. What misery is suffered through the burdens imposed by yesterday and the bitter fears of tomorrow." We don't need to hang on to the past or resist the future. We're dwelling in a moment, which is the threshold between the two. This is the point of power, always, no matter what this looks like. It is what it is, but it isn't the end of the story. I.V. Baker Priest said, "The world is round, and the place which may seem like the end may also be the beginning." And Carolyn Schroeder said, "Some people change when they see the light, others when they feel the heat." And so is true of all of us. And I don't even think I would divide it up into some people. Sometimes we change when we see the light. Sometimes we wait until we feel the heat. Sometimes we're practically cooked before we're willing to change. Sometimes the change may happen after the death transition so that our friends and family don't actually see it occur. But the transition, the learning, the change, I think, is inevitable for every soul at some point on the sacred journey, whether it shows up visibly to others in our lifetime or not. So sometimes we need that support, and the very support itself can look to us like it's a greater loss than ever. Hundreds of years ago in Eastern Europe, there lived a very poor man and his wife, Joseph and Rebecca, and their home was just a little shack. The only possession they had was this scrawny old cow, and it fed them with milk and cheese and allowed them to sell a little bit of milk and cheese to help them earn a very meager living. Well, one afternoon, not long before sundown, Joseph heard a knock on the door, and when he opened it, he was astounded to see the man that was known far and wide as the greatest Kabbalist in the world, the man who was known as the Baal Shem Tov, the master of the holy name. And the Baal Shem Tov was accompanied by a few of his students who were standing respectfully behind him. "We've been traveling all day, and now it's almost sundown," the Baal Shem Tov said to Joseph. "May we join you for the evening meal?" Of course, Joseph stammered, standing aside as the master and the students came into the shack. And at that moment, Rebecca, who was standing at the stove, looked over her shoulder, and her jaw dropped with astonishment and fear at the sudden appearance of this great master. "Very well, then," the Baal Shem Tov said as he looked around. "But I have to tell you, my students and I are very hungry after our travels. We'd like some fine cuts of meat, some fresh vegetables, and of course, some good wine. You can accommodate us, can't you?" Joseph hesitated and then nodded enthusiastically. Oh yes, he said. "This is a great honor for us. We want to give you exactly what you desire. Let me just speak with my wife for a moment." And so he and Rebecca went into a corner of the room, and she said, "What are we going to do? How are we going to give these men what they want? We don't have meat or vegetables, and the wine that we drink is nothing like what would serve the Baal Shem Tov." Joseph thought for a moment, And then he said, "There's only one thing to do. I'll have to sell the cow in order to buy the food. There's no time to waste." And before Rebecca could object, he was gone. Well, within the hour, Joseph was back with all the supplies for exactly the kind of meal the Baal Shem Tov had requested, and Rebecca hurried to prepare it. But as the great Kabbalist sat down and began to eat, Joseph and Rebecca were amazed at how he ate and ate and drank and drank. As soon as he finished one plate, he immediately called for more. He was like an eating machine. Even his students were astonished. It was as if the Baal Shem Tov intended to eat them out of house and home, and that was exactly what he was doing. Well, after downing the very last morsel, the Baal Shem Tov stood up, pushed his chair back, wiped his mouth, and got to his feet. "That was delicious. Thank you very much," he said. "Now we have renewed energy for the road, and so we'll be on our way." And in a flash, he and his students were gone as quickly as they had come. "Well," Rebecca said when the door closed behind the departing group, "now we really have nothing. Not even that scrawny cow. Joseph, what are we going to do? We're going to starve to death." And unable to bear the sight of his weeping wife and the weight of his own worries, Joseph opened the door and stepped out into the cool night. He found himself walking through the forest with no real idea of where he was going, and without thinking then, he closed his eyes, fell to his knees, and began to pray. And from the bottom of his heart, he prayed for all the things he had never had, not just for himself, but also for Rebecca. And just then, Joseph heard a rustling in the bushes behind him, and when he opened his eyes, he saw this old man, well-dressed but disheveled, stagger into the clearing. Obviously, he'd been drinking, but as he caught sight of Joseph, his eyes shone with happiness. "I'm so glad there's someone here," the old man said, slurring his words. I don't want to die alone." "Die?" Joseph said, getting to his feet. "You're not going to die. You've just had a little bit too much to drink." But as he reached out to steady the old man, he sighed and sank to the ground, and Joseph knelt down beside him. And the man said he was a very wealthy man, but his money was the only thing his relatives cared about. In fact, they were just waiting for him to die so they could get their hands on it. "But they're in for a surprise," the old man said. "They don't know that I've buried it. They're not going to get anything because they deserve nothing." "I'm so sorry this has happened to you," Joseph said to him, "but it's very cold out here. You need a warm place to rest. Come with me." The old man just shook his head. "It's too late for that. But you've been so kind to me. Something hasn't happened in so many years. I want to thank you. Here." But as he reached into his coat pocket, he began coughing. And then, just as suddenly, he fell silent, and his eyes gazed heavenward and closed. Joseph quickly bent to help him, but it was too late. The old man had died. Now Joseph felt more confused and frightened than ever. But as he stared at the body, he realized that the old man had pulled a slip of paper out of his pocket. And so Joseph gently pulled the paper from his hand and unfolded it. To his astonishment, it was a map. Yes, he followed it, and he discovered a buried treasure beyond anything he could have wished for or imagined. Well, 5 years passed. The Baal Shem Tov one day was out on the road again with his students when a fine carriage passed by, headed in the opposite direction. And the students were amazed to see that in the carriage was the poor man and his wife who had struggled to provide them with dinner years before. And they looked not only wealthy, but as if they didn't have a care in the world. So the students turned to the Baal Shem Tov for an explanation. And he smiled calmly, as if he expected this all along. "You see," he said to his students, "it was Joseph's destiny to be joyful and fulfilled, but he'd never thought to ask for everything that was really meant for him. He would have been resigned to spend the rest of his life with that one scrawny cow. That's why I had to help him get rid of it. So for us, the universe is actually meaning to serve us at these times when we experience pain and difficulty and challenge. And it's only with the eyes of love and faith that we can perceive more might be going on. And so when we turn our attention to the possibility, what is the strategy that we might face? You see, ordinarily, we're tempted when we're experiencing pain that continues. We're tempted to do a number of things. We're tempted to ignore it. We're tempted to distract ourselves from it. We're tempted to deny that it's happening to ourselves and others. And sometimes for those of us in metaphysics, this becomes spiritual bypass, not truly faith and healing. And we're tempted to just endure it and to become resigned to the fact that it's going to be awful. But there is another choice, and that is to make a different choice in the way that we see it, to consider, how can I grow in this? What is being called forth? What is my soul being called to in the midst of this pain that has been pushing on me so hard? What am I resisting that it's time for me to let go of? How can I make this into a blessing? How can I perceive this as an invitation to a blessing? And when we begin to change our mind, when we begin to look in a different way, something else can happen. Nikola Tesla said, "A single ray of light from a distant star falling upon the eye of a tyrant in bygone times may have altered the course of his life, may have changed the destiny of nations, may have transformed the surface of the globe. So intricate, so inconceivably complex are the processes in nature. In no way can we get such an overwhelming idea of the grandeur of nature than when we consider that in accordance with the law of conservation of energy throughout the infinite, the forces are always in perfect balance, and hence the energy of a single thought may determine the motion of a universe." Now, what does that mean to us? It means what he's saying as a physicist is because the universe, the infinite, is always in balance, then whatever thought we think changes the balance of everything. What if that thought is an opening thought? What if that thought is a thought that is open to the possibility of letting something go, opening to the possibility of transformation, to the possibility of the soul's call through this very discomfort? Ernest Holmes wrote, "Nature will not let us stay in any one place too long. She will let us stay just long enough to gather the experience necessary to the unfolding and advancement of the soul. This is a wise provision," he says, "for should we stay there too long, we would become too set, too rigid, too inflexible." You see, the universe won't let us sit still. Change is the way of things. It's the way of everything in form. It's the way of time. It's the way of space. We can resist mightily. We can get pushed or dropped or dragged there. Or we can allow that pull of something greater to ignite our motivation, to move forward at the signs of pain, to let that get our attention, to let the pull happen so that the bricks don't have to fall. I'm not talking about surrendering to addictive behavior. It's not that kind of pull. I'm talking about being lifted being inspired and empowered in a direction of newness. So let's reconsider the experience of discomfort, of pain, and of how we're responding to it. Let's allow ourselves respond to that push and open to the vision that is trying to invite us forward. Namaste. And please join me now in this morning's affirmation. I will put it up on the screen so that you can join me in it right now. And this is what it says. Please repeat with me. Pain encourages me to pay attention and make a change. I let go of whatever I'm clinging to and let the infinite direct my next steps. All right, now let's say that again, but I want you to think about it as you say it. Pain encourages me to pay attention and make a change. I let go of whatever I'm clinging to and let the infinite direct my next steps. Yes, this is what we're doing this morning. We're letting the infinite direct our next steps. So join me in this prayer now for that very thing. Knowing that what is infinite and permeating all time and space and is all time and space is also more than all of time and space, than all that ever was or is now or could be. That infinite is fully whole at every single moment and form, its body, its expression, including all of us, is the changeable, the transformable, the blossoming, the resting. It is constantly in change and flux, and so are these earth suits, these space suits we wear. And yet, the inner identity of each one and all of us is this eternal beingness. So we jumped into this life, into this possibility of experiencing pain and celebration and triumph and sadness and confusion and love. We jumped in with such enthusiasm at how we would experience discovery, the growth of awareness, the blossoming understanding of our own identity. So we open now, in the midst of whatever discomfort we may be experiencing in our lives, we open right now to the opportunity. We open right now to the invitation to let go and to be even safer in the letting go. We open right now to the invitation to our soul's call, fearing not the future nor clinging to the past. We step into it now with enthusiasm and gratitude, knowing that this is good. And this transition, this transformation, opens in a way that is more wonderful than anything we have wanted or could imagine. And for that, we are filled with gratitude, appreciation, hopefulness, and joy. We're deeply grateful that this is the law in action, that this is the truth we know and claim and remember. So we let this prayer go into that creative law of mind and spirit, which is always active and always says yes. We let this prayer go into that law now, and we just let it be. We let it go. And together we say, and so it is. Take a breath now and join with me as I share with you the morning's announcements. Actually, no. What I'm going to share with you first is our gratitude for the offerings, not just the offerings that we received today or this past week in any of our lives or all of our lives, but all of the offerings we've been receiving, including the ones that are being offered to us in the midst of discomfort. We bless everything that's given to Golden Gate and everything that is given to each one of us in prayer, in financial support, in love, in service. So I'm placing in the comments section of our morning video, so you'll find it as you watch in the comments, the text phone number if you'd like to donate to Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living this morning. Just text the number of what you want to donate. No $, no decimal point. Just text the number to that phone number, and all the rest will be taken care of, and you just follow along with it. But for those contributions, for any that were mailed or automatically given, pledges that are being paid on, or any inspirations that are given to us, the prayers that support Golden Gate, the prayers that our practitioners are giving for all of us twice every single week, and for the prayer tree that prays over your prayer requests for a full week when you put them into the prayer request form on our website, ggcsl.org. For all of that and so much more, I invite you to repeat after me. This gift I give is God in action. I now send it forth to bless and to prosper. I know that everywhere it goes, it is creating a world living in love. One heart and one prayer at a time, beginning right here with me and mine. And so it is. All right, my friends, thank you so much. And now we shift into the morning announcements. So first of all, I want to remind you that new member class is coming up in July, 3 Sundays in July, the 11th, the 18th, and the 25th. Now the time for the one on the 11th is going to be changing a little bit. The other two will be from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific time on Zoom. If you're interested in joining or just finding out what it means to be a member of Golden Gate, send an email to administrator@ggcsl.org. That's Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living, ggcsl.org. And Sonia Belaine, our administrator, will get you on the registration list. I will let you know about the time on the 11th, but get on the list now if you're interested. I would love to welcome you on those Sundays. Now, the reason the 11th is at a different time is because we're having an actual gathering, a going away, sending off party for Mary Cosgrove and Jay Gustafson on the 11th of July, following the morning celebration service at the Corte Madera Community Center Park, because it's the best one we could find for access for everybody. So it'll be back behind the community center there on that day after the service, and we'll give you more details later. If you'd like to help in any way make that wonderful for Mary and Jay, send an email to Lori Morning Glory, that's Lori, Lori Morning Glory @gmail.com, and Lori will let you know how to do that. Lastly, I want to let you know that our summer conference for Centers for Spiritual Living is now open for registration, and it will be only $99 for this online summer conference on Friday and Saturday, August 13th and 14th. It's only $99 from now till July 15th. Go to spiritualretreat.csl.org for all the details. And so now I'm going to invite our wonderful Greg Tamplin back to share with you a little story about Jesus. Take it away, Greg.
Okay, thank you. So I'm assuming probably everybody has experienced what I have, relationships as a growth opportunity. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about the fact that a lot of our saints and sages and spiritual masters didn't really do that kind of growth. And that struck me as an idea for a song. So this is called Jesus Was a Bachelor. And I'll just warn you ahead of time, it takes a couple of left turns, maybe doesn't go where you think it's going to go. The The man I most admire spread love throughout his world. The man I most admire was not out chasing girls. He looked around and saw the deal, said, I can't do this. I'm gonna get my 12 best buds, go drink wine and fish. Jesus was a bachelor, so was Buddha too. Could it be that they knew something more than me and you? Buddha cut the ties that bind and headed for nirvana. Women tried to marry Jesus, but he said, I don't wanna. Relationships take lots of time and compromise at best. Maybe all the saints knew they could never pass that test. Take Mother Teresa, chose to do good works instead. They say nuns all marry Jesus, but, well, he's dead. Jesus was a bachelor, and so was Buddha too. Could it be that they knew something more than me and you? Buddha chose enlightenment over married life. Jesus couldn't save mankind and satisfy a wife. So if all of your friends are saying I do and you just won't, take comfort in the fact that even Jesus said I don't. If you want to set your sights on more ethereal worlds, don't let your lower chakras chase material boys and girls. Jesus was a bachelor, and so was Buddha too. Could it be that they knew something more than me and you? Buddha left his family for much less worldly pastures. Jesus was too busy getting ready for the rapture. Well, some folks now dispute this thought that Jesus was unwed. A rabbi single in those days, there is no way, they've said. Well, as for me, I think the way of partnering is best, 'cause I'd like to be enlightened and still be having. Jesus was a bachelor, well, maybe not. Maybe he was married and that church in Rome forgot. Some say Mary Magdalene was wife and apostle. Sorry, I don't know what you think, but I say, hey, it's possible. There we go. I lost the key for a minute. All right. Well, there's one more possibility we should not overlook. Maybe there's another way that Jesus was mistook. I know what I'm suggesting is not what some want to hear, but if it troubles you, then it's not love you feel but fear. If Jesus was a bachelor, then maybe he was gay. That would be quite frightening for some Christians today. They'd like to ban gay marriage, but the Bible's been misconstrued. What kind of Christianity judges and excludes?
Oh, Greg, thanks so much for being here with us this morning. I really appreciate your thoughtfulness and your humor and the way you bring those two together to help us laugh at ourselves and also think more deeply. It's been really a pleasure having you with us today. Thank you. And thank you, Marilyn, for the wonderful prayer this morning, and all of you out there for being here with us today. I hope you're going to have a wonderful afternoon, but before you take off for the day, come and join me for our coffee, conversation, and connection time on Zoom, right? 5 minutes or so after we get all finished, okay? And I'll put the link for that in the conversation so that you can find it if you want to come and join us. Thanks everybody for being here with us today, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.